إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلوات الله وسلامه عليه أما بعد يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وأحسن الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار ثم أما بعد الحمد لله على نعمة الإسلام والسنة. All praise and thanks belong to Allah for guiding us to Islam and for guiding us to the Sunnah. Ya ibadallah, we have to dedicate our time into doing that which will benefit us. It is incumbent that we focus in on those things that are truly beneficial to us and that we turn a blind eye to those things that have no benefit for us. It is unfortunate, but in this time that we live in, many people are distracted and they are busied with those things in which have no real benefit for them. And thus and subsequently, they turn away from and are hindered from those things in which are actually very beneficial for them. So we have to, bi'ithnillahi ta'ala, understand this reality and understand this tragedy and then try our best to benefit ourselves from the time in which we have and use our time appropriately and in a manner that is most best. And from those things in which we could be doing that are extremely beneficial to us and for us, then undoubtedly they are learning the supplications that the Prophet ﷺ he taught. It is incumbent upon us that we strive to learn these supplications and that we not only memorize them, but that we understand the meanings that are contained therein, that we understand what they mean and understand what they point to. And then when we make dua unto Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by way of these prophetic supplications, that we contemplate and focus on what we are saying and that we have an attentive heart while we are supplicating unto Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the only way to do this is that we will have to spend some time and learn what are the meanings of those prophetic supplications that come inside of his authentic sunnah that he sallallahu alaihi wasallam he taught us. And then we have to spend time putting that knowledge into practice by acting upon it, by supplicating unto Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with that which the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam he taught us. As Sheikh Abdul Razak bin Sheikh Abdul Muhsin al-Abbad al-Badr hafidhahumullahu ta'ala, he mentions in the introduction to his tremendous book Fiqh al-Du'a wal-Adhkar, the Fiqh of Dua and Adhkar, which is a book that those, if they have the ability to read this book in Arabic, then I encourage them to not only read this book in Arabic, but to listen to the lectures and to the classes of the Sheikh that he brings and that he gives, because they are extremely beneficial for the Muslim in their day-to-day life and would help them bring forth those deeds in which will benefit them in the hereafter. In any event, the Shaykh, he mentions inside of the introduction, and we're just reading a couple paragraphs from the introduction of this tremendously beneficial book. The Shaykh, he mentions, he says, فَالْمَشْرُوعُ لِلْمُسْلِمِ هُوَ أَنْ يَذْكُرَ اللَّهَ بِمَا شَرَعَ. He said, and it is legislated for the Muslim that they supplicate unto Allah and they remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with that in which He has legislated. So that when we make our dhikr, when we make our remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and our dua, our supplications unto Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that we do it with that which Allah ta'ala He has legislated. وَأَنْ يَدْعُوَهُ بِالْعِيَّةِ الْمَأْثُورَةِ, and that we call upon Allah, we supplicate unto Allah with those supplications that come inside of the text, those supplications that we have been taught that come inside of the text. Now, the only way to do this is that we have to learn them. There's no way that we'll be able to call upon Allah with those supplications that come inside of the text without learning what those supplications are. So hence, we have to spend our time in that which will benefit us. And this is from those things that are going to benefit us. One of the signs of misery for an individual is that they become busy in those things in which have no benefit for them. That they become busy in those things in which will have no benefit for them. And thus subsequently turn their back upon those things which will actually benefit them. So from that which will benefit us greatly and tremendously here in this world and in the next, then undoubtedly it is spending our time learning the supplications of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that come inside of the text of the Quran and inside of the Sunnah. وَقَدْ نَهَى اللَّهُ, the Shaykh goes on to say, وَقَدْ نَهَى اللَّهُ عَنِ الْإِعْتِدَاءِ فِي الدُّعَاءِ, and Allah ta'ala, He has prohibited infringement inside of dua, inside of supplications. فَيَنْبَغِي لَنَا أَن نَتَّبِعَ فِيهِ مَا شَرَعَ وَسَنَّى. So it is incumbent upon us that we follow that in which has been legislated, وَسَنَّى, and that which comes inside of the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. كَمَا أَنَّهُ يَنْبَغِي لَنَا ذَلِكَ فِي غَيْرِهِ مِنَ الْعِبَادَاتِ, just like this is what is incumbent upon us in other than it from the acts of worship, that we follow that which comes inside of the book and inside of the Sunnah. نعم وَلَا نَعْدِلَ عَنْ ذَلِكَ إِلَى غَيْرِهِ, and we do not turn away from that and go to other than it. We do not turn away from the supplications that come inside of the book and the Sunnah. We turn away from it and we choose something else. Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, as Shaykh Abdul Razak, he brings here, he quotes from Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, where Shaykh al-Islam, he mentioned in Majmu' al-Fatawa, وَمِنْ أَشَدِّ النَّاسِ عَيْبًا مَنْ يَتَّخِذُ حِزْبًا لَيْسَ مَأْثُورٍ عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم وإن كان حزبا لبعض المشايخ ويدعو الأحزاب النبوة ويدعو الأحزاب النبوية التي كان يقولها سيد بني آدم وإمام الخلق وحجة الله على عباده. Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah, he mentions, he says, and from the greatest aibs, from the greatest wrongs and mistakes of the people, from their greatest blunder of the people, is that they will take to a collection of supplications that have not been authentically reported on the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that they take supplications that were not taught to us by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the Shaykh, he mentions, he says, وَإِنْ كَانَ حِزْبًا لِبَعْضِ الْمَشَايِخ, he said, even if this collection of supplications comes from some of the mashayikh, even if some of the mashayikh, they have written them. And you find this, subhanallah, unfortunately, with the Sufis, is that they will have supplications that are not legislated, that have not been taught to us by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they will devote themselves and much time to these supplications and to saying these supplications, while, as the Shaykh Hussein mentioned, he says, وَيَدْعُ الْأَحْزَابَ and nabawiyya, and they leave alone, they abandon, they leave the what? The supplications, the prophetic supplications that were taught to us by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is from the greatest blunders of the people. Yeah, subhanallah, an individual, they may say unto themselves, well, does this really happen in our day and time, and with people who are not the Sufis? Naam, it happens with individuals who are not even from the Sufis, but who have been affected by the Sufis. Subhanallah, there was an individual in one of the masajid that I used to work with, and this individual was very proud and very happy to always tell people and to say unto them and to share with them that he is steady upon supplicating with a supplication that he came across him either in a dream or something that he made up, and he was very proud of it. Naam, he was very proud of it. Something that came to him either in a dream or something in which he had made up. Naam, and he would be proud to tell people that this is a supplication that he says every day, and he does not leave. Yes, subhanallah. Even after hearing the likes of the advice in which we are hearing today, still it is upon that, he is upon that, and this is what he is in love with. And I want you to reflect over something that Shaykh Islam Taymiyya he mentions, because although there may be some good in what this person is saying, and there may be no infringements, deen-wise, as relates to what they are saying. But listen, you are not going to outdo the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So why would you want to supplicate with something you saw in a dream, or something that you made up and you put together and fabricated yourself? Why would you want to supplicate with that while leaving alone the prophetic supplications? Why would you want to lead the supplications? التي كان يقولها سيد بني آدم. Why would you want to leave off the supplications in which the best of the children of Adam used to say? There is nothing you will find in a dream that's going to be better than what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to say. There's nothing you're going to come up with, fabricate, and make up that's going to be better than what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself, he used to say. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who is, as Shaykh Islam Taymiyya he mentions, wa imamul khalq, who is the leader of the creation, wa hujjatullahi ala ibadihi, and who is the Allah's proof upon his slaves. So why would you want to abandon anything that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam he taught us and replace it with that which you saw in a dream, or that which you made up and fabricated yourself? Obviously, it makes no sense. Shaykh Abdul Razak, he goes on to say, he said, فَخَيْرُ كُلُّهُ فِي اتِّبَاعِهِ. He said, so all of the good, it is found in following him, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, وَبِإِهْتِدَاءِ بِهَدْيِهِ, and by adorning oneself with the guidance of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, وَتُرَسِّمُ خَطَاهُ, and to follow his footsteps. فَهُوَ الْقُدْوَةُ وَأُسْوَةُ, because he is the example, he is our role model, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. And this is the reality. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi, he is our role model, he is our example, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. وَقَدْ كَانَ أَكْمَلَ النَّاسِ ذِكْرًا لِلَّهِ, and he was the best of the people in remembering Allah. He was the best of them. وَأَحْسَنُهُمْ قِيَامًا بِدُعَائِهِ subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he was the best one to establish supplicating unto Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Prophet ﷺ was the best of mankind in remembering Allah and supplicating unto Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So with this, it is incumbent for the abd that we stick to the supplications of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and busy ourselves with learning them and saying them and understanding their meanings and contemplating upon them when we are saying them. وَلِهَذَا فَإِنَّهُ إِذَا اجْتَمَعَ لِلْعَبْدِ, the Shaykh goes on to mention, وَلِهَذَا فَإِنَّهُ إِذَا اجْتَمَعَ لِلْعَبْدِ فِي هَذَا الْبَابِ لُزُومِ الْأَذْكَارِ النَّبُوَّةِ وَأَدْعِيَّةِ الْمَأْثُورَةِ مع فهم معانيها ومدلولاتها وحضور القلب عند الذكر فقد كمل نصيبه من الخير. He says, so with this, if an individual, if the slave, if he combines as relates to this particular topic by sticking to the supplications and the remembrances, the prophetic supplications and remembrances that were taught to us by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that come inside of the text, and they couple this with having an understanding of the meanings, وَمَدْلُولَاتِهَا, and that which they point to, while having a heart that is attentive when they are supplicating and remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then they would have completed their share of good as relates to remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وقال Imam Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala in Al-Fawaid, in his tremendous book Al-Fawaid, he says, وَأَفْضَلُ الذِّكْرِ وَأَنْفَعُهُ, and the best dhikr and the dhikr that is the most beneficial, نعم, he says, ما وطأ القلب اللسان وكان من الأذكار النبوة وشهد الذاكر معانيه ومقاصده. He said, and the best of the dhikr and the dhikr that is the most beneficial, that it is that in which it comes on the heart and the tongue. It comes upon the heart and the tongue, meaning that a person, he is attentive to what he is saying. A person is attentive and his heart is attentive when they are supplicating unto Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And what they are supplicating with, it is from the prophetic supplications. And they are doing this while they are reflecting over the meanings and that which is intended by the adhkar. So they are reflecting over the meanings of it and that in which it points to while they are making dua and supplicating unto Allah, while they are remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the most complete and the most beneficial of these supplications. This is the most complete and the most beneficial and the best supplications and manner of supplicating unto Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So with that, I urge myself and I urge you, oh dear listener, to spend much time in learning the supplications that were taught to us by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that learn those supplications that come inside of the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to study them, to have a notebook where you write them inside of your notebook and you write out the translations if you need, and you write the explanations as the ulama, they teach the meanings of these particular narrations in text, that you write all of this out and then you study it, and then you study it and you study it, and then you implement it and you live by it, and you act in accordance to it, and you supplicate unto Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala abundantly, and you remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in great abundance. This is incumbent upon each and every single one of us if we truly want to go to the Jannah. If we truly want to be from the people of Jannah, then we have to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala much. We have to use our tongues to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have to use our hearts to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have to use that which Allah ta'ala has given us to remember Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. For those who are concerned with their hereafter and those who are concerned with their dunya, these are things in which we have to do and be studied upon if we want to be successful. هذا فنكتفي بهذا القدر، وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين، وجزاكم الله خيرا.